If I do say so myself, I think I might have cracked the code to one of the cutest Christmas cookies you can have. Especially if you live in a place where snow melts the days that it falls. These melted snowman cookies are absolutely adorable, and they have a sugar cookie base that's really delicious. It's my tried and true recipe, and I promise they're just as delicious as they are eye-catching. While it might be difficult to take your first bite out of a cookie this cute and a cookie that you've labored over, after your first bite, I promise you won't have any trouble continuing to eat. So here goes. This is so good. This sugar cookie recipe is my go-to sugar cookie recipe. I make it every holiday for all sorts of different shapes and decorations because it's just delicious and has a classic flavor. In the bowl of your stand mixer, you want to combine 1 cup of unsalted butter that's already at room temperature, and this is important because it being at room temperature allows the sugar to incorporate into it more easily, and 1 cup of granulated sugar. All right, now we're just gonna cream it, first on low so that the sugar doesn't fly out of the bowl, and then increase the speed to medium-high and let it beat for 2 to 3 minutes until it's nice and fluffy. It's always a good idea as you're creaming your butter and sugar to scrape down the sides of the bowl with your spatula, just so you're making sure that everything is evenly incorporated. Okay, now my butter and sugar mixture is nice and fluffy, and you can see it looks really airy and light in color. Again, I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl, and now we're going to add our egg, our milk, and our flavorings. Any good sugar cookie, in my opinion, has 2 extracts in it, vanilla extract and almond extract. And especially a Christmas cookie needs to have equal parts of both of those flavors, just to have that really special, bright and sweet flavor that we associate with a Christmas cookie. So here I have a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract and a 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. And I'm gonna throw it right into my butter and sugar mixture. And then I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of whole milk and 1 large egg. Okay, we're gonna beat this on medium-high until it's really airy and fluffy. That egg will start to catch a lot of air in it and it'll become a really pillowy mixture. Now that my butter sugar mixture is ready for the dry ingredients, we're just gonna whisk all of the dry ingredients together. Here I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And I'm just going to whisk these together before throwing them into my stand mixer. This is always the tricky part because flour kind of wants to go everywhere. So just really gently and carefully let it cascade into the bowl. If there has ever been a time in your life to turn your stand mixer on low, it's now. If you go to medium-high or medium even, your flour will go everywhere. So it's important to pulse the mixer on low, on and off, until the flour starts to be incorporated into the butter and sugar mixture. And then you can increase the speed to medium until everything's incorporated. But keep an eye on it because it only takes about a minute. You'll notice that the dough looks kind of crumbly, and that's okay. It's better not to overmix because if you overmix your cookie dough, it'll make the cookies kind of tough and not crisp tender, which is what we're shooting for. So what I like to do when my dough is all crumbly is to remove the bowl from the mixer and just get in there with a spatula and press it around. All right, now that everything's well mixed, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer this dough to some plastic wrap and shape it into a rectangle. That goes ahead and makes it easier for us when we need to roll out the cookie dough. And I'm gonna pop it in the fridge for an hour. All right, I've got my plastic wrap down on the table and I'm just pressing the dough together into a ball in the bowl so it's easier to transfer onto the plastic wrap. All right, I have my cookie dough right here and I'm gonna pop it in the fridge. My dough is done chilling, and this dough can stay in the fridge for a few days. So if you don't want to be in a time crunch, you can always make the dough a day or 2 before and pull it out when you're ready to bake your cookies. You'll notice that the dough has become significantly firmer than when it went in. And that's just because the dough has a high butter content. And as butter gets cold, it gets really firm. But that means that we'll have nice crisp edges to our cookies. So I'm going to unwrap my dough, and I'm gonna generously flour my work surface and place the dough right on the floured surface. You also want to flour the surface of the dough itself because we're about to start rolling it. Okay, this can be a little intimidating. All you need to think about is trying to apply even pressure to the cookie dough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep rotating my brick of dough after I do a couple rolls in one direction, and continually rotating just allows the dough to slowly expand in size without cracking as much as it would if you just rolled in one way the entire time. If your dough has been in the fridge overnight, then it's gonna be extra firm. This is a dough that I actually made last night, so it's pretty tough. And what you can do is rock the pin back and forth like this to just break up some of that really firm butter in the dough. Another trick, if your dough is a little too firm to roll out, is to just use the palm of your hand to press down on the dough. In addition to having way more leverage because it's your arm rather than a pin that you're working with, your hand is also 98 degrees. And so that means it's gonna help soften the dough quicker because the warmth from your hand is gonna slowly warm the dough and make the butter a little more pliable. And if you see cracks in your dough, that is okay. This dough is pretty forgiving and you can just kind of push those cracks together. After you work with it a little while, you'll notice that the dough starts to give and becomes more pliable and starts to roll out easier. And by that point, you're probably almost there because you just want this to be about 1/4 inch thick. And I am right now at about 1/2 inch, so I am almost there. You know, I feel like half of my job in these videos is to try to convince you that these are worthwhile to make. But melted snowman cookies are so cute that if I have to try to convince you, I feel like it's already a lost cause, you know? Like, why would you not want to make a really delicious Christmas sugar cookie that's both like fun and adorable and kind of funny? I don't know about you, but every snowman I ever had in the South, all 3 of them, were melted very soon after they were made. All right, I'm almost there, and you can see these big cracks in my dough. And like I said, you can just push them together with your fingers. Again, the warmth of your fingers is gonna melt the butter a little bit and help the dough to come back together. All right, now for the fun parts. I have 2 round cutters here. This one's about 3 inches wide, and this one is about 1 1/4 inches wide. The cookies are gonna be essentially 2 cookies stacked on top of each other. The small one, which is the snowman's head, on the larger one, which is the snowman's body. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna punch out 18 of these large circles and 18 of these small circles, so we will have 18 beautiful snowman cookies. If you finish punching out the circles and you still haven't made quite 18, we're just gonna push those scraps together and re-roll them. It'll be way easier because the dough will be warmer. And punch out the rest until we get all of the cookies that we need. When you're re-rolling cookie dough scraps, you don't want to roll it more than twice. So we already did our first roll and we punched out the circles and then we squished it together and rolled it out a second time. If you did it a third time, all of the cookies that would come from that batch would be really tough. So this is really the dough's last go. You can take these cookie scraps and maybe bake oblong shapes if you have some left. I would endorse eating the cookie dough, but there's raw egg in it, so technically I'm not supposed to. All right, my oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And here I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. And you're gonna need 2 baking sheets to do all 18 cookies. And I'm just gonna lay the circles on the parchment paper. These only take about 10 minutes in the oven and you wanna keep an eye on them. I highly recommend turning your baking sheet halfway through baking, so after 5 minutes, just to make sure that the cookies bake evenly. I just pulled my cookies out of the oven and I'm gonna let them sit here and cool completely before we do anything with them. If you try to frost a warm cookie, the frosting or coating is just gonna melt and slip right off, so it's imperative that they're at room temperature before you work with them. My cookies are done cooling, and you can see that they're beautifully browned on the bottom. But it can really quickly go from this lovely brown color to burned in a minute or two. So you definitely want to make sure that they're only baking for 10 minutes. But now that they're cool, we're ready to assemble them. So I had a 16-ounce package of vanilla CandiQuik coating that I melted according to package instructions, and I've got that here in this bowl. And then I have orange sprinkles and black nonpareil sprinkles that will make up the eyes and the buttons on the snowman. Decorating these cookies is without a doubt the funnest part of the project, so have a blast and follow along. So the first step is to take one of your larger cookies and one of your smaller cookies, and using a spoon, grab some of the candy coating and put it on the back of the smaller cookie, and then place that just slightly off center of the big cookie. This holds the small cookie in place, which is really important as you're coating the rest of the cookie. And then you're just gonna take your spoon and spread some of this vanilla candy coating all across the surface of both of those cookies. Okay, and now we're gonna take our sprinkles and we're gonna place one orange sprinkle on the face. It can kind of go anywhere because, like a melted snowman, the parts are gonna kind of move around as the snow melts. And then I like placing these other nonpareils kind of not in a straight line to show that the snow has melted. So far our cookie looks like this, super adorable. But now we're going to take our black cookie icing to make the arms. As you can imagine, if these arms are made out of wood, the little stick would still be intact, but they don't have to be directly at the sides of the snowman. There we have it. One of our snowman cookies is done, and we're just gonna set him off to the side until that candy coating hardens. You know, once my nieces were first old enough to bake with me, I wanted to make all of the kind of fancy desserts that I love making, and the things that I would labor over for those kids, like French macarons, different types of stuffed and rolled puff pastry, they couldn't care less about. But throw them a sugar cookie and they lose their minds. So to me, that was like the ultimate uncle lesson, that kids just want things that are cute and really sweet. And these cookies definitely meet that criteria. Another fun thing about these Christmas cookies is that they're three-dimensional. Since there's a smaller cookie stacked on top of a larger cookie, they kind of stand out on a platter or at like a dessert table, which I think is really fun. And it also makes them more fun to eat because you're getting two cookies for the price of one. It's like a tried and true sugar cookie with this really sweet vanilla coating. It just tastes like a Christmas cookie should. And sadly, the snowman is starting to disappear, but that's kind of the whole point of the cookie. So I'm gonna keep eating this. And if you make these for yourself at home, let us know how it goes in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Bye.